Today, we had the pleasure of meeting Amie Balesky, a spiritual medium who is able to read energy and communicate with the non physical realm. She uses her advanced skills to bring her clients peace of mind, comfort, and the answers that would otherwise be unattainable without her help.
During this conversation, she shares about how she discovered her abilities through her own near-death experiences and her process for connecting with souls. She also talks about fraudulent psychics, reincarnation, and how everyone has the ability to communicate with the non-physical. They just have to learn to tap in. Make sure you make it to the end of this episode to hear Amie give us a reading of our own. This was an incredible experience, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
All right. Well, we'll just start by welcoming you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today, Amie. For anyone who doesn't know who you are or what you do, how would you explain that?
Well, for layman's terms, I guess you could say you talk to dead people. But as you and most of us know, like, death isn't really a thing, right? It's just a transition. And I personally experienced this. So when people go, oh my God, like, one of the things I hate the most, when people say, oh, I need to get closure. Well, it's not really getting closure, because you're not really closing anything off. You're just realizing that they're still there and around, and now how you can communicate with them and how they can be with you for the rest of your life. So you realize that there isn't any closure, So what do? I guess I help people understand that there's no closure and that I'm continuing the relationship between them and their loved one.
That's beautiful.
I'm a medium. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
There you go.
Has this been something you've always been able to do? Is this something that happened all of a sudden? Like, tell us what that looked like for you.
Okay. So a long time ago, I was 5. I lost my kidney and part of my liver and intestines to cancer. And that's when I had my first near-death experience. So I died on the operating table because it was so big. And after that, I had chemotherapy, lost my best friend that died of the same cancer within the year. And then essentially started channeling, started feeling just like we always have, but obviously just stayed awake for a little bit longer, right? And then as I went through, I had my second near-death experience at 16 when I had bacterial meningitis, and my family didn't know. So I got rushed to the hospital and died there because the pressure in my brain was so bad, it ended up shutting down my heart. And then, so that was in ninth grade. And then from there, I kept channeling. I was channeling everybody in high school. Good news is that I went to a high school in Pasadena, Texas, where a lot of people get shot and murdered. So essentially, that's what I grew up around, because the area that I transferred in. So I would go through and I would channel all these students that got killed, right? And I would channel the teachers that their husbands and partners would die randomly, sometimes even during class. And then as I got older, I got married at 21, and the guy that I was with did not like it. He kept telling me that it was a bad thing. He was a hardcore Baptist, Southern Baptist, and he told me it was evil, but it just kept happening. And so I became a military wife, and then I continued channeling for all the military spouses. And it happened to be that our base housing was behind a big national cemetery. So a lot of the places would experience interesting paranormal activities. So guess who they would call? And then I ended up having my third near-death experience when I had my brain surgery. And that is where I felt myself going up and seeing myself in the presence of love and what I can only call God. And I came back from that after being in the hospital for 2.5 months and survived. And I remember, essentially, it's like when people talk about doing mushrooms, but I've never done mushrooms before or anything like that. And anytime they talk about it, I go, oh, that is what I experienced, except I don't need drugs, right? Essentially. And I remember getting out of it in the grass. Everything was just beautiful.
Wow. Were you always open to the experiences you were having, or did you ever have pushback from loved ones or your peers? Sounds like your husband at the time wasn't as accepting. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Husband at the time wasn't as accepting. My family, they're not woo-woo people. My dad was born in 1935. He was an Air Force colonel. Okay. I mean, he had 4 master's degrees. My mom's a trigonometry professor at a college. She's now retired. I am the youngest of 7 sisters. Everybody else is like a CEO and a CFO of like hospitals all over the United States. And then there's me, right? And so essentially growing up, it was like, all right, that's weird. This is how they felt. Like, that's weird. I can't explain that. But you're doing something. So we'll just leave you over there. There wasn't ever any encouragement, but it wasn't ever said like, it did scare my dad. My dad used to call me the angel of death, which was interesting. And it's very fitting. Now, this is where the echo of whatever happens now is an echo of your future and an echo of your past. So whatever is in the present with you. So you have these little glimpses every day on what will be and what was. It's very interesting if you're like very perceptive of it, because everything you know is waves. And when my dad called me, that's very fitting because in 2019, I took him off life support. So it's just weird. All these coincidences,
Yeah.
right, that are not coincidences. But no, there wasn't any really big pushback, except from just when people first heard about it. They'd be like, whoa, that's weird. And then I would just kind of let my freak flag fly. And people would say, oh, wow, that's unexplainable. And I'm like, I know. And I think I got really intense with it. So instead of going to like the woo-woo area that like, let's put a crystal up our butt, you know, and all this jazz, I'm not into that. Everything is resonance. Yes, crystals are beautiful. That's why I have Gary behind me, but he's more like a showpiece than anything like that. We'll talk about Gary later. But I realize that everything is energy, everything is God, everything is frequency, and really it's just within you. And your entire world is God as well. And so if you just hyper focus on that, you realize that you don't need all these crutches, essentially.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this idea of the angel of death, I mean, I really do feel like it's your purpose in life to have this relationship with death, all of these experiences that you talked about, even in your own life. And I think it's so
Yeah.
beautiful because we fear death as a society so much. It's like this
We don't
awful
need to.
thing. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more on that? Like how we do not have to fear that and it's not something that has to be, or like you said, how it's this end for people. They're like, okay, that's the end. And you're like, it's not. Like we're all together still.
Yeah. So where do we start on that? It's a very large topic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I like to unpack things really easily.
Yeah.
So death is not obviously the end. It's a transition. For me personally, when, you know, the first 3 times. So the first 2 times and the last one, I didn't realize I was dying. It just happened. My last one, I saw my dog, I saw my grandmother. They were coming to get me, and I woke up, and I was very mad that I couldn't go with my dog. That was my 4th one. That was the last one. But during that 3rd one, when I physically experienced looking at my body, I didn't even know it was happening. And I could see my blood pressure going down. I could see my heart rate going down to 0 as I'm laying on my side, and there's all these doctors around me. And all I thought at first, I was like, oh my God, it's going down. And then my body and my mind were just like, oh well. Like that. That's essentially what it felt like. And it got really quiet, but I could only hear my thoughts. That's it. And my thoughts were in my voice, and they were loud and clear. And I could see everything all around me. But I obviously didn't have a body. I remember the first thing thinking was, oh my God, I just love my mom. Wow, that sucks for me. You know, just stuff like that. That's all that sucks for my body. But yeah, it wasn't the end. The transition was smooth. It was beautiful. But I also think that is different depending on how you live and experience your life, because whatever vibration you embody, whatever you become, whatever is at your core, that is what you match when you cross over. Okay, so that is what you match. And now, is everything love? Absolutely. But I believe from experiencing thousands and thousands of spirits that whatever you are, whatever you resonate with, that is where you go. And that can be from the low all the way up to the highest high, which we talk about God, Jesus, source, whatever you want to call it, you know, all the same thing. And so that may be a little bit different, right? But it's not an end. And within all of this, it's surrounded by God, it's surrounded by love, but within all of this, they're learning at the same time. Yeah, I don't know. There's the levels. Anytime I go through and I channel spirits, one of the first things you do as a medium is you're trying to figure out what vibration they're on, or like what tune they're in, I guess you would say. And so you have to move yourself to that vibration. So it's like if I'm talking to somebody's grandmother that that lived for 110 years, and she ended up passing with everybody around her, and she was the hub of the family. Well, she's probably going to be in this very high vibrational state, so I better get my ass really, really happy, essentially, right? I have to like bring myself up, and then you match it, and that's when you find it. Whereas if I, go through and I start feeling around in this higher area and I don't feel anything, I consider it like echolocation, like you're doing a ping there, and you're seeing if you're going to get a ping back. That's what it feels like. And if I don't get any pings, then I'm like, all right, well, maybe I need a ping down. So then I make myself kind of like melancholy, which is where we're at now. We're kind of like in this middle vibrational state where we have the ability to do good, and we have the ability to be evil or bad or negative. And we're always striving to strive for God. And so I start pinging there. Oh, and then maybe, I find Eric. And Eric is upset because he shot himself in the head. And Eric is upset because he let his life go and he could have done something about it, right? So Eric wants to talk about this and to connect with his family so that he can let this go, tie off loose ends, and he can move up to the light.
Mm.
And then there's low. Sorry, I just went into a whole another talking point.
No.
That was absolutely fascinating. And it makes so much sense to me because I've always been confused about this idea of like ghosts that are almost like stuck and they can't get out. And I'm like, what is that all about? But that makes so much sense. It's like they're kind of stuck at this certain vibration of where they were and they can't get out of that. So that all made so much sense. Yeah.
Well, they can. But do they want to?
Okay.
They can. Do they want to? Just like, so think about it. We do that here too. Every single day. We do that here too. People go, I'm so mad. I'm so upset. Well, you don't have to keep yourself being upset. But I want to, because you want to sit in the shit. Is that what you want to do? Stop because you're only comfortable with that vibration and that feeling, and you're uncomfortable with learning what actual love is? Is that why? Well, that's a lower vibrational state. And so guess what? If you embody that and you become that shitty kitty your entire life and you die, guess what? You go to that angry area, and then you have to learn, except now you don't have a physical body. Now you're having to deal with the pure sense of yourself, the pure sense of your soul, until you release it, and then you move up, or whatever you want to call up, like raise up.
So what are your beliefs on like reincarnation? Like what happens to our soul?
It's a thing.
Yeah. So at what point do we cycle back to the earthly plane? Or any plane? I don't know.
Yeah. No. You're okay.
Yeah.
So on that, I will never come to the table. I mean, yes, aliens are real, obviously. To think that we're the only thing alive in this universe, what are they? Are they physical, or are they an energetic manifestation? I don't know yet, but we'll see. And people are like, have you channeled them? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because I've never met an alien, so I don't physically know what it feels like. So if I have, they feel human. But anyways, do I know that there are other planes? Yes. Have I seen them? No. Do I know where they are? No, absolutely not. And I'm never going to tell. Do I think that there are all these other different planets that we exist on? I don't know. Nobody's ever talked about it, but there's a whole lot of people that talk about it, and they haven't actually heard it or seen it. But I'm not going to say no just because I haven't seen it or experienced, right? When we reincarnate in, one of the things I get a lot from people is they ask me, well, we have all these people that have died from the 15, 16, 17,000, 10,000 years ago. Why isn't the spirit realm flooded? And I'm like, reincarnation. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, why are some spirits still there? Like maybe you have a 1500s monk. Well, because the monk is still there. He's hanging there. That means you're not the monk. And the monk is still stuck to his physically world, and he wants to be there. Why? Because most of them died tragically, right? These spirits that you see there, what happened? The monk got his head cut off and he's carrying it down the hallway, right? So he died tragically. So he's stuck because he's wanting to tie up his loose ends. So let's get back over to reincarnation. So let's just talk about in a family unit. When you go through and you cross over the other side, let's say I have me and then I have my son right now. So when I die, I will, if I lived a good life and a decent life and I didn't pass away when, I was 16 or whatever it is, and I cross over, I will now be a guide and watch over my son, or I will be in that family unit and I will watch over my son. My son won't have a kid. Hopefully I pass after that. But if he does, well, then guess what? I will bring that kid into the world or help him do that. I will guide that kid through my son into this world, and I will watch over that son. Okay. Then that kid, while my son is still alive, has another kid. So now he has a grandchild, right? Yes, I'm going through and I'm watching this grandchild as well. Okay. Because I'm helping it. And guess what? Now my husband's dead. Now my sister's dead. Now the rest of my family is dead. So we're all over there and we're watching this next line. And then guess what? After that, another kid is had. So it would be my great. Guess what? That's my dad. or that's my grandfather. Boom. And so you have like this 100, 120-year cycle around that you have it slowly. So think about it. Everything is a circle, right? From your cell to your eye, to your consciousness, to a thought, to a music. I mean, everything is a circle. And so essentially what's going to happen is it's going to, right? It's going to like shift itself all the way back in. And so you're going to have these different lives, right? Over and over again, but it's almost like you're in that same familiar pact. You're in that same energetic line. Right. And so when you go through and you read somebody and they're like, oh, can you channel somebody that is like my 4 times great grandfather? Well, a lot of times no. And that's because maybe you are your 4 times great grandfather.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Or I have like in the last 3 years, I've had probably about 3,000 sessions or something like that. And I've only been able to confirm reincarnation 12 times.
As in, like,
that's it. Like confirm things to see it, like how I confirm it. Example, I'll give you a small story on this. So there was a woman I was channeling. She came to see me and she wanted me to channel her mom. She says, I want to channel my mom. I go, okay. And so she's around 55 or 54. And so I began channeling her. This is about a year and a half ago. And her grandmother shows up. Her grandmother on her dad's side shows up. And she's like, oh no, she's back in. And I was like, why? And so first off, if another spirit is talking about another spirit, that means that they're reincarnated. You will not be able to get the essence of that spirit that had that life. Okay. You won't be able to talk to them. Now, is this after trying to do the tuning thing? Yes. Is this after going through and bringing other spirits in? Yes. They will talk about that. Right. So it's not just like when somebody, like I hear about other mediums, which is fine because they just don't do the tuning thing very well, or they just haven't done it yet. Right. And they go, oh no, your brother's reincarnated. He just died a year ago. I just can't get him. No, you just didn't freaking get him. No, he's there. You just have to learn how to talk to him. Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm going through and I'm channeling and the grandmother's talking about it. And the grandmother ends up talking about how she died. And I said, did your mom commit suicide? And she goes, yeah. No, she didn't say yes. She says, no. She says she died like alone in her room, but alone, and we don't know why. And I go, weird. And she showed me this image of shooting herself in the heart. And I said, I don't know, maybe she died of a heart attack, but they keep showing me like shooting herself in the heart. And so she's like, no. Anyways, we channeled her, we channeled the grandmother, couldn't get the mom. And then at the very end of the session, they were talking about how there's like this 3-year-old little girl that is around her, is coming to live with her. And that is her mother. And I looked at her and I go, you're 55. I was like, why would she have a 3-year-old? And I said, what's going on with like a 3-year-old little girl around you that's going to come and be with you? And she goes, oh, that's my son's kid. And I go, what? She says, yeah, my son and his girlfriend are drug addicts and they just relapsed. And so I just went and took ownership of my granddaughter and they're coming to drop her off next week to be with me for forever. I'm now her mom. And I go, oh, I said, I want you to go. And when you get her, like, see if there's any cool birthmarks or like send me her chart, because we'll talk about the chart thing in a second. And she goes, okay. And so we get off the call. We didn't talk to her mom. We talked about that, but we talked to, I believe, was her grandmother, and one of her dogs, and then her brother as well. Like they all stepped forward, which is cool. And so anyways, about 6 months go by, almost a year. And I have another session with her and she gets on and she's panicking. And I said, what? And she says, I just sent you an email. And I pull it up and it's a picture of this little girl with just her shirt up. And she has this red blotch mark right here. And she says, I got my granddaughter. And she has that, I don't remember what disease it is, but there's only the red blotch mark right here. And she said, I want to let you know that I talked to my mom's mom and I asked her and she did. She killed herself. She shot herself in the heart with a shotgun. And she was like, they hid that from me for all these years because they didn't want me to know that my mom committed suicide because we were a very religious family. And I was like, oh. And then I looked at the kid and her mom's chart and they are all 1/2 step up, which is indicative of like, this is the next, right? This is the next transition. Yeah. And so it was cool. So that's like that's one of the cool ones.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really enjoy, well, this is why I felt called to reach out to you because you're so grounded in everything. And I love that you're like, I don't know, but could be like when you're talking about aliens, you're talking about other dimensions and things. Cause I feel like so many people, cause there's a level of power that you have, correct, over someone's like experience with things. So it's really refreshing to not be like, I know everything.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
don't. And I think
Yeah.
that's where people get in trouble too, because as soon as you say that, like, number one, everybody thinks you're a woo-woo. And number two, you don't have any way of proving it, right? Fully. I don't have any way of physically proving it to the eye. I can re-experience. I mean, even my experiences with spirit are still my own. You know,
Mhm.
I always talk to people when people come up, I get a lot of people that go, I don't believe in what you do. I said, well, that's great. Have a great day. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Yeah.
I used to not be like that, but my whole thing is the first thing I ask them is I go, have you had a spiritual experience? Have you had a near-death experience? Well, no. And I'm like, well, until then, you will not get it.
Mm.
That's okay. When you do, come back. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what
curious.
you have to do.
So, are you able to pick up on a person who they are reincarnated from? Like, have you spoken to people when they're like, oh, like you said, can you speak to my uncle, my great great uncle Joe? And you're like, actually, you are them. Like, are you able to kind of feel into that at all?
You can kind of, yeah, well, a little bit, like they'll talk about it. They'll talk about who it is, as long as you had a connection with them.
Mm.
Essentially, like, let's just say this, like with her daughter was reincarnated, right? Because it was mom. But if you are asking me, do I feel if you are your 5 times great grandmother, I've never been able to feel that before. The
Mm.
only time spirits may talk about that is like, let's say I'm reading you're wanting to connect with your 2 times great grandmother because she was helping you. And then guess what? You're like your son or your grandson just had a baby, and they're talking about how that came in.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's essentially it.
How would you
Yeah.
explain like adoption? Kind of like
Well, I mean, sorry, keep going.
as far as like soul connections to people, like would it be like the adopted
Yeah.
family, or would it be kind of the birth by biological family,
Mm,
or both?
I
Sometimes
think it
I don't
could be
know.
both.
Yeah.
I think it could be both, just because, I mean, think about it energetically. Just because you came out of somebody's cooter doesn't make you like, I mean, it doesn't matter that. It matters how you energetically came together. So sometimes, right, an adoptive kid can be more like that person's kid than the regular kid, right? So
Mhm.
it's just whatever you're aligned with. And there's a reason why you were to find them. There's a reason why they adopted you. That was already in the plan somewhere,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to ask you about is just your opinion on other mediums, because I'm sure there are so many people that aren't legit that are out there. And you talked about even people that will just come to a conclusion immediately because they couldn't get to the right vibration. They're like, oh, well, this must be what what's happening. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people that aren't even, they're just probably making things up. So are you able to kind of get a sense for people when they're not legit or,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, and so I'm not here to talk shit because I don't like to, just because
Yeah.
everybody has something, right? But I like to go on TikTok live at night sometimes, and I don't hop in, or Instagram live. I don't hop in to them because it shows the Boleski is here, and people are like, "Ah," right, and so then everybody gets nervous, and so I'll just kind of like stay out of it. I'll watch it every so often. No, this is like maybe once every 2 weeks, so because I don't have time. But I will go on some of these, different mediums or like spiritualist platforms, which are fine, and I'll watch them. And there's a couple of them that I just like go by and I watch, and there's quite a few of them that are actually pretty darn good. Like, they're good. But also, one of the things we're going to talk about mediums, but let me lead into like the live situation. So there are mediums that are on lives and they're doing readings, and I'm on the fence about those all the way. And here's the reason why. You're channeling God and you're using it as like a sideshow.
Mm.
Okay. There's you on live. There are 900, 1,000 people that are wanting to come and get a session, are wanting to come and feel. You are in entertainment zone because you're entertaining on live. So you're not fully in that zone all the way. And then the people that are wanting to be read are not in the zone. They could be pooping on the toilet. They could be at McDonald's. Their kid could be screaming in their ear, right? And so 50% of the connection is the client. The other 50% is you. If they're not chill, if they're not relaxed, if they haven't called anybody in, they're the channel. Okay, so then what does that leave you? That leaves you high and dry. Right now, you're dependent on somebody you have no connection with. You can't see, you can't hear, you can't feel, and you're just looking at a username that says Mrs. Doodlebug77, and what it ends up, which has no energetic connection to this person except for when they typed it in on TikTok, right, a month ago. And so then you're going, okay, there's a Paul. He's a man. He's 5'10", and he's balding. What? How many Pauls 5'10" balding do you have? And then somebody will go, oh, did you mean Peter? And they go, yes, Peter. And you're, oh, it is a P name, isn't it? Shut up. Shut up. Make it more sacred. Okay. When you go and you have a session with somebody, you're preparing, you're getting ready, you're sitting down, you're hyper focusing your energy, you're getting together, you're essentially connecting one-on-one in this energetic area, and you are channeling through the most beautiful presence of God to try to give somebody an amazing gift that they have within themselves that you are essentially trying to wake up within them. It's not just like a sideshow thing. And so I don't know, I have a really hard time with like lives because it's just so flat. And then people go on and they think that that is what every medium is supposed to be like, right? And so when I end up getting them, they're like, what was this? They're like, I felt like I was on the phone with them. I'm like, yeah, because that's how it's supposed to be. Like, that's how it's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be able to feel like this is a conversation, right? Because that's what it's supposed to be. The other thing is like, there's so much when you talk about like other people that are doing this or not doing it. My favorite thing is when people say, I'm a medium, but then they only use tarot cards and they're chewing gum and their boyfriend's in the background listening to rap music. Again, it gets into that non-sacred space, non-connection. When you're talking about tarot, yes, in some instances it works, but I'm going to let you know with tarot, you are limiting your conversation, your rhetoric, you're limiting your word bank to, I don't know how many cards are in there, but we're going to say 52 because that's what's in a deck. You're limiting your conversation to those 52 cards you have, and you don't have to be in a zoned out state to pull a card. Right? You can be high as a fucking kite on the back of a dump truck. It doesn't matter, right? You're going to pull a card because that's what your body does. Now, is that connected to spirit? Probably not at that point, but everybody else is going to think it is. Okay. So that if you go through and you learn how to channel and you learn how to feel and you learn how to connect, the way that spirit talks is that they have your entire world. They have everything that you've ever seen, ever experienced, every word that you've ever said, and they can put that in your brain and they can turn it into a sentence, and all you have to do is turn it into English. Now, that's so much better. And so, but people are, I think, number one, are afraid to learn it. Number two, they don't have anybody teaching them. And so that's why I teach those classes. Because people need to realize that even people go, oh my God, well, I wasn't meditating. Did I channel? Yeah, you can be meditating while you're taking a shower. You are channeling while you're taking a shower. You're channeling while you're driving a car. Now, to the intensity of the connection is going to be based on how zoned out you can get, how like level you can get, and how level your communicator is. But you're constantly channeling. Your whole world is a channel, and the environment's constantly speaking to you.
Yeah, I don't. It's interesting because you were saying everyone has the ability. I feel like I see my life in symbols. Like I just had a video go viral on TikTok because my sister just graduated. Thanks. My sister just graduated with her master's degree, and the day of her graduation, or actually the night before, my cousin who lives in Georgia and where I'm in California, and I just recently reconnected with her, or connected with her. I had never met her in my life. She just happened to send me out of the blue a picture of my great-great-grandmother on my dad's side, who I've never met. And it just was very, it wasn't a coincidence. I knew it was meant to be. Like, she's present there with my sister. I've been saying for the weeks prior, I was just really feeling into like, Carly, it is amazing everything you've accomplished and how you are literally the first one in our lineage to do this. Like, our ancestors, especially I was feeling into like the female ancestors, the women, are so proud of you because like generations have been building to get you to this place. And I have a different life path, and she is the one who kind of went more like scholarly route, which anyway, so she is the first one, and it's really exciting. And so if to have my cousin just randomly send this picture of our great-great-grandmother, and then the day of, we're walking to the graduation, and I see symbols of elephants, which was my grandma's favorite animal. And then we saw her name 3 times just randomly. Like, we would walk by a building, and it's like, it's the Ruth building. And I'm like, there she is. We went to dinner and in the restaurant had a poster with her name just like in bold. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
there she is again. And so I was the one going, and my family would be like, oh my God, you're right. And I was like, so
Yeah.
I was interpreting it for everyone, and then everyone was able to like feel into it. But I feel like that's
That's
kind
what
of
it
how
is.
yeah.
That's what it is. That's
Yeah.
a normal daily thing for me. And it's
Yeah.
so fun. And I'm so glad you got to experience that, because then you know what most people say that haven't gone aha moment, they go, that's a coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence. Nothing.
Mm.
Okay. You stepping on gum and bending down to pick it off your shoe for an extra 2 minutes. That's not a coincidence. That has an effect on something else in the future.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. There's a reason for it. And also, like when I go through and I have sessions, like a quick example of yesterday. So when I start sessions, it doesn't just start when I'm having and sitting down with my client. Yesterday I was getting up. It was kind of like a busy morning. We had a lot of stuff to do. I had a meeting, and then we had to go into town. We live on 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. And so going into town is like a 40-minute drive each way, right? So that sucks up a lot of your morning. And so as we're driving there, I realized I was going to be channeling one of my friends. His name's Clarkson online. And I was really nervous about channeling him because he's very straightforward. He's very Capricorn all the way through, which is great. And they're very like low profile, right? So there's not a lot of emotional energy, but they're wonderful, right? So you can, by the way, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's so fun. I keep getting something, and I'm going to have to go off on a tangent on that in just a second. And I'll tell you all how that feels. So essentially there's a feeling in my brain that goes, they don't say this word, but it feels like, hey, bitch, like, come on over here and talk. Like, that's the way it feels. And it's like going off over here. I don't know who that is or what is going on. Odd. I have no idea. Does somebody have somebody around them that is driving a motorcycle and is very dangerous or something? I wonder if this is for a client that I'm going to have later. I don't know. Somebody have like a guy around them that is driving a motorcycle very dangerously? I mean, you would know. You would know. You would say yes. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no.
There's some guy that is showing up. Mind you, I have sessions in like 2 hours. And so they do show
Okay.
up there, and I'm zoning out in my session room. There's some guy that keeps showing me that he is in all black. He's on a crotch rocket. He's in leather. He's a white guy. He looks Italian. And he keeps showing me an image of like if somebody's on a bike and going like that. And so this means he's like fallen off. So I'm just going to mark my words that there is going to be a gentleman that is Italian or looks like that passed today because of a motorcycle accident on a turn. Not necessarily on a mountain, but like on like a hilly range, and it feels more like East Coast. So we're gonna leave that there, and then I'll email you. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, so I had to get that out. Yeah, I will. So let's go back to the story. It's because we're talking about it. So we went into town, and as we're driving back, I was actually getting pretty nervous about channeling this person. I don't know why. They always show up, but I do get nervous still. And so I'm driving, and my husband's driving, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And all of a sudden, I get this image. It's just like your brain, like whatever you're doing goes away, and all you can focus on is this image like that. And I saw this girl with long hair. She was wearing a polo and leggings, and she was laying on the floor like this, like all sprawled out, like if somebody punched her, and, just like a lip noodle. And I was like, whoa. And she lifted up, and half of her face was gone. And I was like, oh. And I stopped, and my husband's like, are you okay? I was like, I just saw a girl that I think shot herself in the face, and half of her face was gone. And he was like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And as quick as that, boom, it was gone. So I got a lot of information out of that picture because of the clothes she was wearing, how it felt, how she looked at me, where it was at, what happened, even to like what gauge gun it could have been because of the amount of damage done to her face. Okay. Because that's from channeling. And so anyways, I get into my first session. I don't know who that is for. I don't know if it's for the rest of the week. People that die like that, they can show up 3-4 days in advance and just kind of like hang out because they want to talk, right? And so anyways, I get into my first session with Clarkson, and I'm sitting there, and I look at him, and I got that image really quickly. And I was like, Clarkson? And he goes, yeah. I said, I know you want to channel your family. I go, but did you know a girl, maybe around your age, she's wearing a leggings and a polo, and she shot herself in the face. And he goes, oh my God, Amy, that was me and my best friend's roommate. we're all roommates. And I go, what? And she says, yeah, I was the manager of Orange Theory Fitness. And she was my assistant manager. And she would always wear leggings and a polo to work. And she went home and she shot herself in the face. I said, do you know if it was like a big gauge shotgun? And she says, yeah, she got her dad's hunting rifle. And so, yeah, so
Wow.
she was showing up. Yeah, it was very interesting. And so why was she showing up? Well, she kept flashing me this picture of this guy, and she kept making me feel this feeling of like, oh, which means like, why did I do this? Why did I do this for him? Why did I do this because of him? I said, so she did this because of a guy that she wasn't dating for like months or something. And he goes, yeah, they broke up like 6 months ago and she couldn't get over it. And she tried to reach back out. He didn't want to because he was with somebody else. And so she did this. And I was like, oh, yeah. So what does that do for her? Well, she's trying to make connections because he still lives. They moved to Miami, but he still lives with the other best friend, the roommate that used to be the three of them. And he's in contact still with her mom. So she's trying to get the message across to the friends that she screwed over and the mom so she can tie up her loose ends and move up. That's it.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Wow. Are
Yeah.
there any ways that spirits will come through to people like to us where we don't necessarily have the abilities that you have, but if we're not in contact with someone like you and they are just desperately trying to get our attention, are there things
Yeah.
or signs that we may see of them like, hello?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you with the Ruth. The Ruth everywhere, all that.
Yeah.
Or what's another thing? They're constantly talking to you, except we just go, oh, that was weird. An example would be maybe you are in your bathroom, or maybe you're cleaning, or maybe you're driving to work and you're having a good thought about something else or whatever it is. And all of a sudden there's this interjected thought, boom, of like your dad holding you as a child. But you're seeing this memory as like a third person. You're like watching yourself get held or played with or something like that. And you go, weird. Where'd that come from? That's not from you. That would be from your dad. So your dad is trying to come in and say, hey, I love you. Remember this. All right. So he's trying to make that connection. Another one is you make it a feeling. So feelings, what is your best instrument? Your body. Your body's your best instrument. And so they will come up. Why? Because everything is energy, everything is frequency, including your body. And so when spirits kind of try to come up and connect, they do hop in your body. Whether you like to believe it or not, they do, because that's how they use your energy, or they come around, you know, your aura or whatever it is. And so you may get goosebumps on one side, or you may get, God, what's another thing? One of the things that happens to me is, and maybe this happens to y'all too, you'll probably notice this, like maybe you're really missing somebody that has crossed over. Maybe you're sitting in there and you start to get, I like to call it the pit, because you can feel yourself kind of like going down into like the pit a little bit. You're like, oh. And then as I start going down into this pit, even though I can channel them, even though I can feel them, I do want to have lunch with them sometimes, right? Let's go get Italian food, and I can't do that. But so I'll start going down into this pit, and then all of a sudden I'll get a call. All of a sudden I'll get a text. All of a sudden my husband will come and knock on my door. Bop, 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 bop. What are you doing? Oh, I thought you called me. I was sitting quietly in here. And it's because they send them, or they make you get that call, or they make you get that text, so that way you can pull yourself back up into this higher vibrational state to where you naturally should be. So that's another sign.
As you're talking the past like 10 minutes, this happens. This has happened to me since I was little and young.
Do
and
it.
I'm just now at a place where I like will voice it. I get really shaky. Like I'm not cold.
Yes.
I get sweaty and I get shaky and I get chills, and I'm kind of just sitting here shaking this whole time while you're talking.
It's spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really know what it is. Why I just kind of like let it happen, because if I resist, I get more uncomfortable. But I just kind of vibrate, and I'm like, this is crazy. But I just, especially talking to you, I just kind of am letting it happen. But I just needed to voice it out loud.
Well, thank you. Yeah, good. Okay, this is a thing. If you go back just real quick, it's like 3 videos ago on my TikTok or Instagram or wherever it is, right? But so I read, and this is just going to confirm what you're talking about. I read this couple probably about 1.5 years ago. Their name is Randy and Sunny. And they wanted me to channel their daughter. Their daughter is in a vegetative state. She got into a really bad Jeep accident, and she had been in a vegetative state for 13 years. Like, and they had her at her home. They had 24-hour care for her, all this stuff, and they wanted to see, could I do it? And I've channeled people in comas before, and one of them was to see legally if they could take this person off life support. And part of the family was wanting to do it, and the other part of the family wasn't. And so the two families came together and came to me and asked me. Now, tell me that's not a lot of weight on somebody's shoulders. I was like, yeah. Anyways. And so the guy comes in, his spirit is there, it's around, and he keeps saying that he's still fighting. He's still fighting, right? Well, about 9 months later, he does wake up. He wakes up. He had a motorcycle accident, and he does wake up, which is amazing. Okay, and so I think he's still in because he's bringing his cognitive dissonance back, but he woke up, so it was a good thing they didn't pull his plug, right? But anyways, I was going through and I was channeling them, and she was talking about how there's going to be this infection that's going to come in essentially and kill her soon. And she's talking about when this happens, like, let her go. And her family was like, well, should we? I was like, well, I said, if it happens, like, yeah, I said, that's what she's saying. And they go, oh, well, she's never had that before. She's 21 or sorry, 26. She's like perfectly fine. And so anyway, so I get an email last Thursday, and it's from Randy and Sunny. So this is a year later. And they say, hey, our daughter got pneumonia and we tried to fix it for like the last month and we can't. And she's actively dying. And I go, oh my gosh. I was like, I'll see if I can feel her. We'll see what she thinks, right? And so I go on for my whole day. I go on Friday and I'm getting ready. I get out of the shower and I get that shaky feeling. It gets all over me. If you watch the video, I'm like, oh my God, I'm shaking. You're not cold, but you're just like, that's the way I can describe it. And I was like, oh my God, who's here? Who's here? And then I got this vision of horses, because she was a professional horse rider in Montana. Like, that's what they did on ranches. Like, this girl was tough as nails. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, Randy, Sunny, oh my God, it's their daughter. Oh my God, I bet she's dying. And so I pulled on my spirit box, my Transcend hat, my Transcend Theory app by Steve Huff, and I put it down. I focused. I was like, okay, I know you're here. I know you're here. I was like, tell me that you're here. And the first word that comes up is here. And I'm like, ah. Anyways, I'm like running around my bathroom naked with my towel. And I'm like, what do I do? How do I document this? So I make a video. I just look like absolutely terrible. And I email Randy and Sunny, and they were like, oh, she just died that morning. And she says, we told her to go find you. And I'm like, naked?
In my shower?
Yeah, yes. And so it says it on the comments. They're like, we told you to find you. And I was like, oh my God. And so that was a very angelic, light, airy spirit. But that energy goes through you, and your body is already handling a certain amount of energy, right? And so now you're having that on top of you. And so it's making it just go haywire. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I guess the next step would be kind of navigating what is, because I'm just kind of experiencing it, but like you're able to be like, who is it? What's going on? I'm like, I have no idea.
So then what do you do with that? So what I would do is I would calm down for a second, and I would focus on a couple of people. So what do I mean by focus? Like, for me, I'd be sitting here, I want to be staring at you, because if I'm staring at you, I'm paying attention to what you look like, what you're looking at. So if you ever see me channeling, I'm always looking up here, because number one, it's weird to just close your eyes the entire time. So I have to have my eyes open. And so I would sit here and I would essentially like point my direction in the direction of you, or point my direction in my body, my energy, my thought. I don't know what it is, but it's just a thing in the direction of you. And I would ask, I'd be like, who is this? Is this for somebody, for her? And I'd wait. And I may get a masculine feeling, which the feeling of that is like when you think about dad feels different than mom. So that difference of feeling is masculine or feminine. I'd get a quick boom. Okay, so it's masculine. Okay, all right, so man. Okay, so who are you? How are you related? Or can you tell me that? So I'm always asking questions in my head. And I would get, see, I'm trying, because I'm asking right now, who? I wonder if that guy's name is Corbin. C name. Also, people always ask, what about channeling? Why can't you always get their names? Well, it's because you may not have their name in your brain. you haven't heard every single name in the world. You haven't heard everything in the world. So that's what they're pulling from, is everything that you've heard. I have never heard, Sasquatch pineapple before as a name. And so if you nickname somebody that, they're not going to be able to pull it out of my brain before, right? That's why I love it when people are like, can you guess my nickname? And they come back and they talk about Peekapoo or something. And I'm like, yeah, I would have never gotten that, right? And so right now there is some, just for me feeling, I don't know what it is. It's not necessarily stepping forward, or maybe it's because I'm not fully zoned out yet. But there is something very masculine over here on my left. I don't know why. Hold on. Hold on. Does somebody have like a really nice female like aunt, or like hashtag like kind of mothering type of energy? Not grandmother, but it would be like a younger female. Like it'd be like an aunt or like a godmother or something like that.
Who's
Or it'd
alive
be like
or
somebody,
who's
if you
dead?
dead.
I do have a couple aunts, but they wouldn't be like younger energy. that
Okay,
have
would they be
passed.
like 60, like right around there, or how old
Yeah.
are they?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me that's younger because my dad was 90 when he died, so that's old for me.
Yeah.
And my mom is 70, so for me, I guess that's all personally. Yeah, so there's somebody I would have to say like between 55 and like 62, like somewhere around there,
Mhm.
that is boo-bopping and fun, that is just for some random reason that is showing up. Is that more on your mom's side than your dad's?
My mom's side, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, just because they keep going, tell your mom hi,
Oh.
like that. But it's weird. Like that's just how that sounds in my brain. I
No,
don't think that they
I
sounded
can
that
think of
like,
someone
girl.
that makes a lot of sense for.
Okay, yeah,
A
they're
very
just like
chatty
reaching out some.
aunt.
Yeah, very, very nice. And now, so this would be the whole thing. Why would they be coming through right now? Because you do have a masculine energy around you, but they're not really making contact with me right now. But the female just kind of like stepped up and she's like, oh, you go do your own thing. I'm coming in. And I'm like, all right, cool. We'll be here for it. And I wonder, is there, no, I don't know. Oh, how sweet. How sweet. Um, are does somehow with her, is there like a little boy that would be around her, or like that she would be looking out for, or like a younger like son type of energy? Or did she have a son as well? Like did your mom have a brother?
Yeah, on my mom's side, they had a lot of siblings
Yeah.
that have passed
They
over the years.
they
So there was
oh
maybe one of the
wow.
younger brothers. Yeah.
Brothers. Yeah, she just
Yeah.
keeps walking up with like a little boy in hand, and she keeps saying sibling, sibling, son, son, son. And I'm like, okay, whose son? I was like, is this? And they go, no, brother, brother. And so I'm like, okay, we go into that. And so she like has one of these kids. I don't think they died as a kid, but she's just
Mhm.
making them see that way so that my brain understands what that is.
Yeah.
And so like she's there, they have that. Who? Why? Why? Oh, I don't know what that means. Hold on. Hold on. Who? So why am I asking these things out loud? So I get these little quips in my brain. So essentially I see her, I see the boy, and then I get this feeling of like him. And I go, who's him? Who is that? Who are we talking about? And they keep trying to point to this masculine energy that's near you. Who? It's going to sound weird. I know we're talking about reincarnation. There's some guy wearing a hat, like an old school hat, which is interesting. Do you live in an older apartment or an older condo or something like that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, odd. There's some guy, the only reason I'm asking that is because there's some guy, you know how they used to wear like the 1920s like
Mhm.
hat, that like the gangster hat or whatever it is, like with the Tommy guns. I don't know what that is. And so I never see this unless there's like a guide pretending to be like this tough guy to like try to protect you. That could be a one thing, not in a mean way, but they're just like, hey, I'm here. And so what are they
Mhm.
showing as a tough person in my head? Somebody from the 20s that's a gangster, right?
Right.
Or it could also mean that literally you live in a building that was from like the 10s that housed a gangster that died there. So I'm trying to figure out in my
Totally.
brain, which one is this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
since it's not that, so I'm only going to assume that it's probably the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who? Oh. Does somebody name or somebody have the name of Elizabeth? Or does like Liz come in anywhere or Elizabeth?
Mm-mm.
I have a cousin. Are you asking me too? I have a cousin.
Yeah, both of you. Yeah. Okay, who is that?
I have a
That's just
cousin
a cousin?
it's on my dad's side, and her dad passed
Oh.
away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, somebody just came through and they go, Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Elizabeth. And I know that you can have it in like 3 different ways. And so somebody's just coming through and saying hi over there. And they're calling out to that name. And did like, why? Oh, and he really loved her, like, she really liked him? Okay, yeah, so many people don't like their dads these days, and so it's very refreshing. There's just, like, this feeling of, like,
Mm.
which is, like, love and hugging somebody, and so he's just saying, like, "Hi," and he loves her, he's around for a second, and hold on, so what does it feel like right now? Essentially, the room in my brain just feels empty, and all of a sudden, there's, like, this that shows up. It's like this presence kind of gets in there. And it's my job to feel this presence and figure out what their mold was for life. Like what were they and how they talk, because every spirit talks different. They talk in signs and symbols, they talk in feelings and emotions. They'll try to put me in a situation that could have happened to them or you or will happen to you by using my own experiences that I've had. And they'll talk in words. Sometimes they'll only talk in one of those, or other times they'll talk in all 4 of those all at the same time, and you're having to do this decoding thing. And in the meantime, you're asking back and forth is like, is this what you meant? Is this what you meant? And then you get a feeling of like, yes. And then that's when you say it. And or no, or who? I don't know. What? Hold on. See, they're talking about a relationship for you. They have brought that up more times. Are you out of a relationship right now?
Are you asking
Ah,
Savannah or me?
no. Yeah, you. Yeah, are you out
Yeah.
of a relationship right
No,
now?
I'm in a relationship.
Are you? Okay, is
Mhm.
that going okay?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, okay, and that's been going on for a while?
Yeah. 5 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, for a while. Okay, there may be like, I like it, it's fine, but they keep showing me the symbol for rocky, or they keep showing me the symbol for waves, and I'm not thinking we're going on a boat anywhere right now. And they wanna, like but it wouldn't be coming from you, and the person that you're with, I like a lot. Like, they feel like they're a good person. Um, it comes down to, like, mental stress. So I don't know what's going to be coming up that may end up having this person go, "Ah," like that. That for me is mental stress. That's what they look
Mhm.
at. Um, but it's essentially y'all are gonna have to work at it and like keep it together. I mean, you can, you will, it'll be okay. But I think there's gonna be some little interesting waters that can be just gone through by like taking the time, thinking about it, putting in our place in the other person's feelings, and then working all the way out through it. Like there's something that goes with that coming up.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I would say coming up, usually that means in like the next 3 months.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why. And why. Hold on. Hold on. Who are you? There's something that came up by the couch, or what you're sitting on down here. It feels like an animal. Um, hold on. Who? Who? Who is the? Oh, who is that? Oh, Who was the Papa? Baba? Okay, but who? There is some guy that just keeps replaying the same image over and over and over in my brain. Older. Mhm. I don't know why he's putting himself as that age. He just keeps coming up and like he keeps showing me an image, I guess, of like um you when you're the sister, the one that was the one that graduated. Sorry, no, that's the cousin. So like you have a sister as well, correct?
That was my sister who graduated.
Okay, that's your sister. Okay. He keeps coming up and like grabbing both your necks and giving you a hug over and over again. But he shows himself as older. It doesn't feel like it'd be a father. It feels like it goes into more like a getting like a grandfather-esque area. But why? Do you know if like was your grandmother on your what? I think you have two people coming in and it's causing my brain to feel like it's like being pulled across like gum.
I have a lot
Do
of
you-
people over there.
yeah. It feels like bleh. Was your grandmother on like your mom's side? Was her husband dead for a while before her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There's some gentleman that keeps coming in that's talking about that. That's just like saying, oh, I love y'all, I love y'all, I love y'all. And he says, oh, like with the grandmother or found the grandmother or something, and goes along with like mom's side, and then she's talking about like having them all together. And he keeps showing me an image of, and maybe this is just my image for California because y'all can eat outside and have like dining parties outside, unlike here in Texas. But they're showing me an image of like everybody sitting down at a picnic table and having watermelon and wine and food and all that jazz. And like this person is coming up in a nice blue polo and he's wanting to sit down and talk to everybody. So essentially he may be creating his own version of heaven or like having a family gathering or like wanting everybody to be there. And so I'd say that would be somebody else that just shows up for a half of a second. So he's just coming to say hi and like telling each other how proud he is.
Did you say Papa or Baba?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Papa.
he was my Papa. Yeah.
Papa. He was
Yeah.
Papa?
Yeah, that's what I
Really?
called him. Yeah. And blue is my grandma's favorite color, which is it's like what color I associate that whole family with. Blue is in our entire house, yeah. Or their entire house.
Yeah, he should. That's what he showed me. He was wearing a blue polo, and so the colors are very important. I'm glad you could pick that up. And yeah, he goes, "Oh, Papa, Papa," and I'm like, "Papa is Papa." Yeah, so he gets it. Yeah, they're here. They love you. They're all around, and so all you got to do is just dive into it a little bit. I don't know. Are y'all okay?
Yeah. No, I'm like, is there anyone else?
yeah. There's a lot. I am gonna have to run here in just a second. I have another meeting in just about 10 minutes though. So tell me, how do we want to finish this up, if anything, or whatever you want? It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
I feel like I need to like sit with all of this. I mean, this was such an amazing conversation. Love your energy. I mean, you bring so much positivity to death. I mean, that's the best thing I can say, which is so refreshing and so cool that we could just have a really candid conversation about something that's really scary for a lot of people. I just want to thank you for your time. And I don't know, do we want to, I mean,
and having me.
Yeah. One last question we do like to ask our guests is, what do you feel your purpose is in this life? I know that's a big question.
Just to see what happens. That's it. I mean, apparently, I think I'm doing it right now. Yeah. You know, there's a reason, and it's probably only going to get bigger from here. And I mean, I guess this is it, you know. I mean, I'm dying early, and that's okay due to my illness that I have. So, I mean, we're 35. We usually live till we're around 55. So I hope to retire in about 10 years and then kind of hang out on my farm and play with my cows and do the whole spirit thing. So 10 more years of channeling and feeling people and like bring people to light. Hopefully we can enlighten a couple of people or a few thousand people and bring them up and realize that they can channel too. And then, you know, down the line, they can channel me. And then we can do it all over again in 120 years.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So remember, life still exists after death. There's no death. There's just a transition. And they're all next to you. You just have to feel them.
Well,
That's it.
Amy, this was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm going to go into the rest of my day connecting and feeling into everyone else who's around me because I got some people to
Do
call.
it.
I got to message my cousin, got to call my sister.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to book a session with you, follow your journey, or just connect, how can they do so?
So everything is on my website. My website is the THE Boleski, B as in boy, ALESKY experience. It's very long.com. So theboleskiexperience.com. If you just Google the Boleski, because so many people don't remember that, I will pop up on there. That's also the same on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the way across the board. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right. And I will link all of that info in the show notes.
Okay.
Well, thank you so
Okay,
much for
okay,
talking
well-
to us today.
You're welcome. I love you. Thank you for having me. And if you need me, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
We will.
Okay. I love y'all.